Okay, if I'm being honest, if I'm saying the actual truth, Jujutsu Kaisen has made me very, very emotional. It's made me teary-eyed. It's also made me jump out of my chair in excitement and epicness. And just around the last 10 or so chapters of this manga have made me go bonkers. I've been going like, yo, dog! Hit that subscribe button and that bell to be notified whenever we drop a Jujutsu Kaisen related video or any other anime manga you want me to talk about. I'll be talking about it. Because admittedly, Jujutsu Kaisen does have problematic aspects. There's certain parts of this story, there's certain parts of the way it is structured that will sometimes make people feel like, oh god, here we go again with Jujutsu Kaisen. But thankfully, amongst all of that, there is a little bit of a actually a lot of a silver lining that really demonstrates just how amazing the story is, just how epic it is, and just how much of a goat Akutami is becoming as they continue to create this amazing manga. I mean, from Maki to Hakari to Panda. Yes, people, it's time. It's about that time to talk a little bit of that Jujutsu Kaisen greatness. I don't know if I should cry or be, oh god. Let's talk about it, baby.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
Okay, people, it's been about 10 or so chapters since I've read the Jujutsu Kaisen manga. I just caught up. I'm up to date as of the recording of this video. The latest one is chapter 190. So, you know, started from the bottom, now we're here. Oh, such an outdated joke meme, but here we go. And where we last left off, or where I last left off, shall I say, Hakari was doing battle, or getting ready to do battle against that Manga Dork dude that is in the culling games right now. In fact, I want to say, even before that, the last chapter that I talked about was essentially the Yuta versus those two dudes. In particular, one of them looked like Josuke from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I believe the female that he was fighting as well, and Yuta bodied them, and I mean, rightfully so. Did you expect anything less? Like, the only way I see Yuta taking like the massive L and quote-unquote dying or anything like that is at the hands of a big dog. Like, I could see Kenjaku being the dude that takes out Yuta, something like that, but it ain't gonna be no small fries, and I'm gonna just keep it a buck. They're all small fries. They may be a little epic, they may have some really cool domain expansions and all of that jazz, or they may be connected in history, but they're small fry. They're definitely small fry, and it's just that Akutami knows how to take these small fry, pretty much doing the shonen classic style of 1v1 and make it epic and make them feel a little grandiose. Like the dude, I forget his name now, Hagoromo? Oh god, no, Hagoromo's a Sage of Six Paths. The dude anyway that was like the lawyer that went nuts or whatever, like he felt kind of epic. In retrospect, I was like, sheesh, you know, Akutami is taking these brand new characters and making them kind of cool, and I would love to see the ones that didn't die, the ones that are continuing on, them at the end of this arc kind of all mosh pitting or something like that, because that would be quite epic. But cutting back to it with the whole Hakari versus that Manga Dork thing, definitely felt very meta. Definitely felt like Akutami was speaking directly to the manga audience and whatnot. Almost to a certain degree, there was times where I felt like, geez, is Gege losing the passion? There was at one point where it was said like, yo, I don't even care really about manga as a reader or as an author anymore, and I was like, yo, Akutami is projecting like a madman in this story right now. But nevertheless, it was a decent setup, and for the most part, I preferred the philosophy of that battle than the actual battle, because while it was Hakari just has a 10 billion times better fight down the road, but it was still a decent setup, and I feel like Akutami noticed that maybe this fight ain't gonna be all that epic after all. It's like some manga artist that is trying to get Hakari to read their manga in a weird ways. Like, it was alright, but Akutami switched it out real quick for an even more epic battle. And before we even get to that part, I gotta just straight up say, this right here, this part that I'm about to talk about, kind of broke me. I ain't gonna lie, kind of broke me. I was a little bit like, oh, when we got to Panda's flashback, because initially Panda's throwing down with Kashimo, and Kashimo cuts him down into little ribbons. But prior to that, we get that flashback that was extremely powerful, emotional, and something where it kind of gives you a valuable lesson to a certain degree, because essentially the backstory with Panda, where they had their family, and ultimately it was like the gorilla, and you know, the father, and all of these people that was Panda's family, and ultimately Panda was bullied heavily. Panda was basically treated like shit, and ultimately the big brother, opposed to like defending his little brother, would kind of leave him out there and kind of treat him like shit as well by not defending him. It's like they even said at one given point, it's okay to pick on your little brother, that's just how things go, but when other people pick on him and you don't defend him, you're kind of shit, you're kind of scum for that one. I mean, they didn't say verbatim, but yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it as well. Like, dog, that's Panda, what are you doing? Like, why are you letting him throw his ball in the ocean, and then you're gonna shit on him after the fact, where you could have just grabbed his ball and told told him, no, he's playing with us. And I get it from the opposite side of the spectrum where Gorilla is like, yo, he always wants to tag along. He always wants to be with me. I guess maybe in my older age now where I'm at in life that I'm like, well, if my nephew, for example, wants to come with me everywhere, then he's just coming with him everywhere. And if I lose in certain avenues because of that, then so be it, because I know a win will be around the corner. So I kind of looked at it as maybe just the Gorilla didn't quite understand what it's like to be an adult and really in that kind of big bro type of scenario, because I look at it like, you know, whether it's my nephew, my daughter, whoever, like, yeah, tag along with me. I don't really care. Whatever happens, happens. As long as I'm with you, that's the victory in and of itself. And then later on, of course, the Gorilla figured it out, but it was a bit late, because I ain't gonna lie, when they started rushing out of the crib and, you know, Gorilla's like, yo, what's going on? What's happening? Why are we leaving my bro? And when it was said basically that we're not leaving him, he's leaving us behind, I just tore up so bad. I was like, what are you doing to me, Gagaku? Tell me what's going on here right now. What is this madness that you are trying to express on these pages? Because I got quite the teary-eyed, my lord, if I'm being quite honest. Like, legit, it had me like bawling the hell out. I was like, oh my god. Because then Gorilla finally recognizes like, yo, dog, but that's my bro, and it's a little bit late, lad. You know, you kind of did what you did, and now he's kind of left off on his own. And Panda, when he busted out of the crib, but he was like, where is everybody? I felt kind of bad, but that's just kind of life. And I forget, it's a little muddy to me at this point. Was it that Yaga was coming to get him, or was it that something else was gonna happen? Like, what happened to Panda at that point? But either way, that was just amazing. Probably, if it wasn't for like the latest stuff with Hakari, I would have said that this is my best and most favorite thing all year. And it probably really is, just realistic, because the emotion stuff was amazing. But dog, Hakari avenging Panda, when Panda is there split up into a bunch of pieces after Kashimo just did him in, I was like, oh god, what's about to happen? And then Hakari showed up, and Hakari, I just thought, Hakari's a dope, really powerful delinquent, but we didn't know much of him, and he kind of came across as an ass when we got into the whole fight night scenario where Yuji and Megumi went undercover or whatnot. He just came across as an ass with a little bit of a hot temper and a passion for gambling. Seeing where we kind of landed with it and whatnot, it just all of a sudden he went up there, and I even threw a poll on Twitter where I was like, yo dog, who's the biggest badass? And Hakari was up there because I had to throw him in there. Although in retrospect, putting Maki in the list was an automatic victory because we know how Maki do, and we'll talk about Maki in a second. But I say all that to say that Hakari versus Kashimo, best fight of his thus far, hands down, bar none. But also, I would argue that this is one of the best technical battles, one of the best hand-to-hand combats we've had in the entire series. And that's saying a lot because Toji threw some crazy hands, we've seen Gojo do some massive stuff, but in terms of hand-to-hand combat and just choreography in general, bar none, Hakari bodied that shit. Like him versus Kashimo, the strategy left and right, it felt like a Hunter battle on steroids because Hakari was just beasting. And quickly, let's dive into the whole flashback of Kashimo with Kenjaku, and pretty much what kind of established and began the catalyst, so to speak, of Kashimo's obsession of meeting up with and fighting Sukuna. It was pretty much because of Kenjaku, and god damn it, the mystery of Kenjaku continues to, while it slightly unravels, it gets even more complex. It was like, oh well, shit, here he is again, and this dude's just been around and he's inspired a lot of crazy shit. So, you know, the whole thing of these old-time sorcerers returning, I ain't gonna lie, I kind of wish more manga would stop feeling like, hey, we gotta cater to younger kids and make these, you know, pretty boy designs, because I rock with the old man look that Kashimo had in that flashback. I'm just saying, it looked beastly. But either way, just kind of pushed even more so that Kenjaku's been planning a lot, and he probably was on some, you know, a little bit of scared, mate. He didn't have the heart to go and find Sukuna because he's like, I'm gonna, I guess, inspire this dude, huh? In a way, he inspired him to hunt down Sukuna, probably for his own benefits, because he probably knows realistically Sukuna would body that ass. But nevertheless, very interesting. I always love when Jujutsu Kaisen dives into the lore. I just wish Gege would stop teasing us. I want all of it, okay? I want it all. If I was to say one weakness, if I was to say something that I started off this video talking about, and I gotta keep it real, man, if I'm gonna tell you all of the goods, the things that made me cry, the things that made me go, oh my god, Hakari, whip that ass, then I also gotta tell you guys the stuff that makes me a little bit like, ugh. Because the main problem, the only problem with Jujutsu Kaisen that stops it from being quote-unquote perfect. Obviously, nothing's perfect, but Jujutsu Kaisen is damn near close, is the fact that it suffers from something that Yoshihiro Togashi kind of implements, and considering the fact that Gege Akutami is pretty much a student of Yoshihiro Togashi, it's something that, like, that whole thing of, you know, dialogue attack. While we're seeing this epicness of domain expansions, we're also being attacked by the dialogue domain. Because, dog, I'ma just keep it a buck with you, and maybe it's just me. You probably watching right now are like, oh, that doesn't affect me. Well, it affects me, and this is one of the reasons why I stopped reading Jujutsu Kaisen for a little bit now. Was it'd be daunting to read all of that and then to also take it in and understand it. Like, I'm still a little bit on the I kind of get it, the whole jackpot situation and pretty much luck. It goes into his whole personality, which obviously domains are all extensions of people's personality. It's kind of like a stand in a way if you think about it. Now that I think about it, that's probably why Jujutsu Kaisen is even more epic. It's Hunter x Hunter with some JoJo's stand powers, so to speak, minus the big figure on top of them. Because, you know, Hakari, he gets this rush from gambling, so to speak, so the jackpot thing would be perfect for Hakari. But boy, the explanations of some of these domain expansions, these cursed techniques and all of this, it gets a little overwhelming, and I'm not even gonna lie. Like, sometimes I'm like, dog, can you just simplify it? Like, it feels like Gege Akutami is trying to achieve a goal, right? Of making some of the most complex battles, some of the most complex powers, but still integrating it into their shonen work. And Yoshihiro Togashi has done that, and even sometimes, I'm not even gonna lie, and I'm sure there's some people watching right now that will agree, Hunter x Hunter sometimes overdid it. A lot of people I remember criticized, like, dog, the narrator is narrating and detail upon detail. It gets daunting, and it's not to say that, oh, Jujutsu Kaisen is not a 9 anymore, because I damn near put Jujutsu Kaisen at the very least in terms of, you know, the scale of shonen. It's a 9 or better. It's just to say that, dog, it probably would be a 12 if it wasn't for this. It probably would be a little bit higher for me if it wasn't that sometimes I don't want to read and continue to study a manga where I do at the end of the day come to these series for something very major. You ready for it? You ready for it? Entertainment. And when it starts to feel like a task to get through the chapter, that's when it's a little bit like, yeah, I think I'll take a couple months off reviewing this shit. And thankfully so, because, yo, marathon reading this shit was amazing. I mean, the fight was just incredible again between Hakari and Kashimo, and then even going into that whole cliffhanger leading into like chapter 189 where they were submerged in water and Kashimo was about to hit him with that massive electric attack. I was like, oh shit, where are we going? And then I was caught up for that week, and I was like, it's gonna be a daunting one until the next chapter. And then as of the recording of this video, the latest chapter, chapter 190 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Oh my god, dog, I was so freaking excited. I was through the freaking moon, because at first I was like, well, this guy Kashimo, he's looking and he's hunting Sukuna, right? He's probably gonna get the victory over Hakari. That would show what level of threat he was. So when we see that they both re-emerged and Kashimo thought that he had the victory and he took an L to Hakari, first of all, to me it confirmed that, wait a minute, you thought you was about to get Sukuna? Like, yo, Hakari is a beast. I'm not gonna front on Hakari. He's one of the 3 strongest or some shit like that, right? But do I need to say any words? Like, if you couldn't be Hakari, you have no chance. That's what you got.
No chance, so that's what you got.
Shout out to Vince McMahon. Yo, Vince, where's my check, dog? No. Vince McMahon is in a lot of trouble, but that's another note. When Hakari emerged and basically was victorious and knocked Kashimo down to the ground, and we see that he's missing a freaking limb, he lost his arm, I was just like, oh my goodness. Because with 190 for starters, we was all for a good minute thinking, oh, so not only did we lose Yaga, and we was all left with Panda's Cry 2, then we was left with, oh, Jujutsu Kaisen fans cried too, when it looked like Panda's guts was splattered everywhere and it was the end of him. So when we see on 190 a little chibi panda running, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I needed that right now, lad. I definitely needed it. Because I'm just keeping it real, I did not want to see Panda die. I don't want to see Panda die at all, period. Seeing that baby panda, I don't know if it's that he's reborn from what happened to him or whatever it is. I'm okay with it just because, come on, man. It's bad enough that he had his big bro ripped from him, his everything ripped from him. Then you're gonna kill him too? Oh, he's reborn now. Okay. And pretty much it seems as though there was some deal struck between Kashimo and Hakari, because now that Hakari understands, like, oh, this dude, he just wants to, you know, fight Sukuna. He probably made a deal like, hey, I'll bring it to Sukuna, but yo, you gotta roll with us. So now we got Kashimo, this legendary dude that rolled with Kenjaku at one given point, at our side, and also the dude that, you know, kind of took one of Hakari's limbs, despite Hakari saying, hey, I could get it back, but no worries, like, yo, he's rolling with us. And Panda's confusion, like, dog, I'm literally like a phoenix right now, reborn because of this motherfucker. What do you mean he's rolling with us? And then I ain't gonna lie, this was probably one of my favorite moments in forever, where Momo shows up and is like, yo, and asks about the points. But then it's something that Momo said that I was very happy to hear, because apparently, you know, talking about Maki, which we haven't seen Maki in a minute ever since the, you know, Zaning Massacre, which that's still, whenever that gets animated, I would love for it to be a movie. I'm just saying, if y'all want to make a movie, Maki movie, I'm here for it. Y'all want to make an original OVA with super special animation, I'm definitely here for it. But Momo said that pretty much Maki can run through the colonies, and I was just kind of like, well, how are you getting through those barriers? Everybody's like, how are you getting through those barriers? And then when Momo says it's because she's basically transformed into a monster, I was like, let's go! In case you can't tell, Maki is my favorite character in Jujutsu Kaisen. So to hear that Maki has essentially reached the heights of a Garo from One Punch Man turning into a damn monster, I was very much so pleased. And then they take it a step further into bringing Maki back into the fold, where we see Maki running into Noritoshi Kamo and kind of just having a little bit of a, yo, what up? What up? And then we left off with another cliffhanger of like, Jesus Christ, like what are we doing here, fam? Where a new curse, or mysterious curse, has showed up, and we're left there. And I'm not even gonna lie, dog, Jujutsu Kaisen, these 10 chapters has been, to say it was a ride would be an understatement. This shit was gas, this shit was fire. From Hakari's battle with Kashimo, Panda getting blasted into little bits, Panda's backstory with his bros made me tear up, Maki is a monster now, Hakari lost a limb. There's just so much freaking stuff to say. The only negative I honestly would say is that the explanations for the technique sometimes is just absolutely jarring. But I say all that to say that, yo, Jujutsu Kaisen has been absolute greatness. I freaking loved it. I love Maki. I love a lot of it. It's really, really good. But I'm extremely curious what you guys think. For starters, did Jujutsu Kaisen make you cry with the whole Panda situation? Did any of it get you at the very least emotional? What do you think about the Hakari versus Kashimo battle? How do you feel about it? Do you like it? Yay, nay? Do you think that Kashimo would have any chance against Sukuna, considering he couldn't take out Hakari? What happened to Panda on that night that he quote-unquote left them behind? And Maki's evolution as a monster, where do you think it stops? Like, there's just so many freaking questions. Yo, dog, just think about it for a second. Yuji and Megumi and Nobara, we haven't even seen her for like, what, a couple years now? But the other two as well, and Gojo, all of them haven't been relevant, and we're still loving this series. Imagine that. Imagine that. That's when you know your author has an insane pen. A lot of other series, I won't name them, but when you shift the focus from the main characters, it usually falls apart, and everybody's like, this is boring, get it over with. Not Jujutsu Kaisen. And your overall thoughts and expectations for the manga moving forward. This was crazy. This was hype. I love to see it, lad. That's all I have for this one. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule. Anime and manga for life, boy. Peace in.
So just go to ForneverWorld.